Kale stood in the shadows of a dense forest, his silver suit shimmering faintly under the dappled sunlight. The air around him hummed softly with the energy of his cloaking device, rendering him invisible to any casual observer. He had arrived on Earth only moments ago, sent by the Galactic Council to assess whether this peculiar species, humans, were ready to join the interstellar community. Kale wasn't optimistic. From what he'd seen in reports, humans were chaotic, emotional and prone to violence. Primitive, some might say. He stepped carefully over fallen leaves, avoiding making even the slightest sound. His mission was simple: observe, evaluate, and report back. If humans proved too dangerous or too unevolved, they would be deemed unworthy of contact and potentially quarantined from the rest of the galaxy. Kyle didn't relish the idea of condemning an entire species, but it was his duty. Besides, he thought as he watched a squirrel dart up a tree, how impressive could they really be? The forest gave way to a narrow dirt path that wound its way toward a small town. Kale deactivated his cloaking device, deciding it would be easier to blend in if he appeared human-like rather than remaining hidden. His suit shifted seamlessly, altering its appearance to mimic the clothing of the locals. A plain black jacket, jeans and sturdy boots. It wasn't perfect, but it would do for now. As he approached the edge of the woods, Kale's sharp eyes scanned the scene before him. Humans bustled about their day, oblivious to his presence. A man in a red pickup truck honked impatiently at another driver who had paused to let a family of ducks cross the road. Across the street, a woman argued loudly with someone on her phone, while clutching a bag of groceries. Nearby, children laughed as they chased each other around a playground, their shouts echoing through the crisp autumn air. Kyle tilted his head slightly, analyzing the interactions. To him, it all seemed so messy. These creatures acted without logic, driven by emotions that flared unpredictably. One moment they were kind, helping strangers or sharing laughter. The next they were angry, shouting insults or slamming doors. How could such a volatile species ever hope to coexist peacefully with others in the galaxy? His thoughts were interrupted when a voice called out behind him, "Hey, are you lost?" Kyle turned slowly, his glowing blue eyes narrowing slightly as he processed the question. Standing a few feet away was a young woman, perhaps in her mid-20s, wearing hiking boots and a bright yellow jacket. Her dark hair was tied back in a loose ponytail, and she carried a backpack slung over one shoulder. She looked curious, rather than alarmed, which surprised him. "No," Kale replied after a brief pause. His voice was smooth and calm, though tinged with an accent unfamiliar to human ears. "I am not lost." The woman smiled, clearly amused. "Well, you're definitely not dressed for hiking. I've been coming here for years and I've never seen anyone wear something like that." She gestured vaguely at his outfit, though her tone was friendly rather than judgmental. Kale glanced down at himself, then back at her. "This attire is functional," he said simply. He considered adding more, but decided against it. Humans often talked too much, filling silences with unnecessary words. Kale preferred efficiency. "Functional, huh?" The woman chuckled. "Okay, fair enough. My name's Emily, by the way. What's yours?" For a moment, Kyle hesitated. Giving his true name might raise questions he wasn't prepared to answer. Instead, he chose a simpler response. "You may call me Kale." "Nice to meet you, Kale," Emily said, extending a hand. When he didn't move to shake it, she lowered it awkwardly but didn't seem offended. "So, what brings you out here? Tourist, researcher? Or are you just really into fashion statements no one else gets?" Kyle studied her closely. Her demeanor was relaxed, almost playful, yet there was a sharpness to her gaze that suggested intelligence. Most humans would have been frightened or suspicious upon encountering someone as unusual as him. Yet here she was, treating him like any other person. It intrigued him. "I am observing," he finally said. "Observing what?" Emily asked, tilting her head. "Birds? Trees? People arguing over parking spots?" She pointed toward the busy intersection where two men were still yelling at each other. "All of it," Kale admitted. "Your species fascinates me." Emily raised an eyebrow. Fascinates you? That's a new one. Usually people either love us or hate us. Not many aliens stopping by to check us out, though. Kyle froze. Aliens. She knew, or suspected, that he wasn't human. Had he made a mistake? No, he reminded himself. His disguise was flawless. There was no way she could know. Unless... You believe I am not human? He asked cautiously. Emily shrugged. Well, you don't exactly scream local. But hey, maybe you're just visiting from Europe or something. I'm not going to judge, everyone's got their quirks. Relief washed over Kale. She hadn't figured it out. Or perhaps she had, but she wasn't letting on. Either way, her nonchalance was refreshing. Few beings in the galaxy would react so calmly to meeting someone from another world. Before he could respond, Emily gestured toward the trailhead. If you're sticking around, you should come into town with me. Grab a coffee or something. It's not every day you meet someone who looks like they stepped out of a sci-fi movie. Kale considered her offer. Spending time among humans might provide valuable insight into their behavior, and Emily, despite her casual demeanor, seemed intelligent enough to offer meaningful observations. Perhaps this encounter could prove useful. Very well, he said. I will accompany you. Great. Emily grinned, turning to lead the way. Just promise me one thing. What is that? No abductions, okay? I'm pretty sure my cat wouldn't forgive me if I disappeared. Kale blinked, unsure whether she was joking. After a moment, he nodded. I give you my word. As they walked side by side along the wooded path, Kale found himself studying Emily more closely. Her movements were confident yet unhurried, and she spoke freely, offering commentary on everything from the weather to the local gossip. At one point, she stopped to pick up a discarded candy wrapper and toss it into a nearby trash bin, muttering something about litter bugs. Such small acts of responsibility intrigued Kale. They hinted at a deeper sense of care for the environment and community, traits he hadn't expected to find in humans. By the time they reached the edge of town, Kyle's initial skepticism had begun to soften. While humans were undeniably chaotic, there was also a complexity to them that defied easy categorization. Emily's curiosity, kindness, and humor challenged his preconceived notions. Maybe, just maybe, there was more to this species than met the eye. But Kale knew better than to jump to conclusions. Observations required time and patience. For now, he would continue watching, learning, and evaluating. After all, appearances could be deceiving, even for someone as advanced as him. Kale followed Emily into the small town, his sharp eyes taking in every detail. The streets were lined with quaint shops and cafes, their windows decorated with colorful signs and autumn-themed displays. People moved about purposefully, some carrying shopping bags, others chatting animatedly with friends or family. To Kale, it all seemed so ordinary. Yet there was an underlying rhythm to it, a sense of life and energy that intrigued him. Emily led him to a cozy cafe on the corner, its sign reading Brew Haven in bold letters. She pushed open the door, letting the warm scent of coffee and baked goods waft out. This place has the best lattes, she said over her shoulder as she stepped inside. Kyle hesitated for a moment before following, unsure how to navigate this unfamiliar setting. The interior was bustling but not overwhelming. A young barista greeted them with a smile from behind the counter, while customers chatted quietly at small wooden tables scattered throughout the room. Emily walked up to the counter confidently, ordering a caramel latte without hesitation. When the barista turned to Kale, he simply nodded and repeated her order. He had no need for sustenance, but mimicking human behavior seemed like the safest course of action. As they waited for their drinks, Emily leaned against the counter and glanced at him. "So, Kale, where are you really from?" she asked casually, though her tone suggested she already suspected the answer wasn't going to be straightforward. "I am from far away," Kale replied evasively. His glowing blue eyes flickered briefly, betraying a hint of discomfort. Humans were curious creatures, always seeking answers to questions they weren't meant to ask. "Far away, huh?" Emily smirked. You know, if I didn't know any better, I'd say you're trying to avoid telling me something. Kyle tilted his head slightly, considering his response. Honesty, or at least partial honesty, might earn her trust. My home is not of this world, he admitted, but I am here to observe. Emily's expression shifted from playful to thoughtful. An observer, huh? That makes sense. You definitely don't act like anyone I've ever met. She paused, then added, Do you think we're doing okay? As a species, I mean? It was a question Cale hadn't anticipated. Most humans were too preoccupied with their own lives to reflect on such matters. Yet here was Emily, asking him, a complete stranger, for his opinion on humanity itself. It was both surprising and admirable. You are complex, he said finally. Your actions often contradict each other. One moment, you show kindness. The next, you display aggression. It is difficult to understand. Emily laughed softly. Yeah, that sounds about right. We're kind of a mess sometimes. But hey, nobody's perfect. Kyle watched her carefully. Her ability to acknowledge humanity's flaws without shame intrigued him. Perhaps there was wisdom in her acceptance of imperfection. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more beneath the surface, something he hadn't yet uncovered. After collecting their drinks, Emily guided him to a quiet table near the window. Outside, leaves swirled in the breeze, painting the sidewalk with bursts of red and gold. Cale sipped his latte cautiously, noting the bitter warmth of the liquid. It wasn't unpleasant, though he doubted he would ever fully appreciate the appeal of such beverages. For the next hour, Emily talked freely about her life, her job as a teacher, her love of hiking, and her dreams of traveling the world. She spoke with enthusiasm, her hands gesturing animatedly as she described her favorite places and experiences. Cale listened intently, fascinated by her passion. Humans were capable of such depth of emotion, even when discussing seemingly mundane topics. At one point, a loud crash echoed through the cafe. Both Cale and Emily turned to see a child accidentally knock over a tray of pastries. The boy froze, wide-eyed, as his mother rushed to apologize profusely to the staff. Instead of scolding him, she knelt down and gently reassured him, reminding him to be more careful next time. Other patrons smiled sympathetically, offering words of encouragement. Kyle observed the scene closely. Despite the disruption, no one reacted with anger or hostility. Instead, they responded with patience and understanding. It was a small moment, but it left a lasting impression on him. Perhaps humans weren't as volatile as he'd assumed. When they finished their drinks, Emily suggested they take a walk around the town square. As they strolled, Cale noticed a group of soldiers training in a nearby park. Their movements were precise and coordinated, their expressions focused and determined. They carried rifles and wore uniforms emblazoned with insignias Kyle didn't recognize. Something about their discipline caught his attention. Who are they? He asked, nodding toward the soldiers. Oh, those are National Guard members, Emily explained. They train here regularly. Pretty impressive, aren't they? Kyle nodded slowly. He had seen military forces before during his travels across the galaxy, but there was something different about these humans. Their unity and synchronization hinted at a level of organization he hadn't expected. It made him wonder what else humanity might be capable of. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Kyle excused himself, claiming he needed to return to his lodgings. In truth, he wanted to begin testing humanity's limits. Using his advanced technology, he initiated a series of subtle disruptions designed to gauge their reactions. First, he caused a temporary power outage in a residential area. Lights flickered off, plunging homes into darkness. Some residents groaned in frustration, while others scrambled to find flashlights or candles. Within minutes, neighbors began helping each other, sharing supplies and checking on elderly residents. Next, Cale orchestrated a minor traffic jam by disabling a key intersection's traffic lights. Cars honked impatiently, and tempers flared as drivers argued over who should go first. However, amidst the chaos, a few individuals stepped forward to direct traffic manually, restoring order until the lights came back online. Among them was Daniel, a tall man with broad shoulders and a calm demeanor. He waved cars through methodically, earning grateful nods from frustrated commuters. Cale watched silently from the shadows, analyzing the data his suit collected. While many humans reacted with irritation or confusion, others demonstrated remarkable resilience and resourcefulness. Emily and Daniel stood out in particular, their actions reflecting a willingness to help others despite the inconvenience. These qualities intrigued Cale, challenging his initial assessment of humanity as primitive. That night, as Cale retreated to a secluded hilltop overlooking the town, he reflected on what he had learned. Humanity was indeed chaotic, emotional, and unpredictable, but they were also adaptable, compassionate, and resilient. Their capacity for cooperation, even in the face of adversity, hinted at untapped potential. Perhaps they weren't as unworthy as he had once believed. Still, Cale knew better than to draw conclusions too quickly. Observations required time and patience. For now, he would continue watching, learning, and evaluating. After all, appearances could be deceiving, even for someone as advanced as him. The next morning, Kyle rose early, his mind still buzzing with thoughts about the humans he had observed. Their unpredictability fascinated him, but it also left him uneasy. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to them than met the eye, something deeper, something hidden beneath their chaotic surface. Determined to uncover the truth, he decided to investigate further. Using his cloaking device, Kyle slipped into a nearby military base under the cover of darkness. The facility was heavily guarded, with soldiers patrolling the perimeter and cameras, scanning every inch of the grounds. But Cale's advanced technology rendered him invisible, allowing him to move freely without detection. As he wandered through the base, he marveled at its organization. Rows of vehicles lined the lot, weapons were neatly stored in armories, and training exercises took place with clockwork precision. It was a stark contrast to the disarray he had witnessed in civilian life. Kyle soon found himself in a restricted area filled with filing cabinets and computer terminals. Curious, he accessed one of the computers using a small device he carried, bypassing security protocols with ease. What he discovered astounded him. Files upon files detailed humanity's recent advancements in technology, from cutting-edge weaponry to experimental spacecraft capable of traveling beyond their solar system. There were plans for orbital defense systems, artificial intelligence programs, and even attempts to terraform other planets. But what truly caught Cale's attention was the sheer scale of cooperation required to achieve these feats. Different nations, once bitter rivals, had pooled resources and expertise to tackle challenges they couldn't face alone. Scientists worked alongside engineers, politicians collaborated with military leaders, and ordinary citizens contributed funding and support. It was a level of unity Cale hadn't expected from such a fractured species. As he sifted through the data, Cale stumbled across a video recording. It showed Captain Ryan Hawkins, a stern-looking man with piercing gray eyes and a voice that commanded respect. Standing before a group of soldiers, Ryan delivered a speech about duty, sacrifice, and the importance of protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. His words resonated deeply, not just with his troops but with Cale as well. Strength isn't just about firepower, Ryan said, his tone firm yet compassionate. It's about standing together, no matter how tough things get. We fight not because we want to, but because we have to. For our families, our friends, and everyone counting on us. Cale replayed the clip several times, absorbing every word. There was a sincerity in Ryan's voice that struck a chord within him. These humans weren't merely driven by survival or conquest. They fought for something greater, a shared sense of purpose. It was a concept Cale had rarely encountered during his travels, even among more advanced civilizations. Before leaving the base, Cale made sure to erase all traces of his intrusion. He couldn't risk exposing himself. Not yet. As he reactivated his cloaking device and slipped back into the night, his thoughts raced. Humanity's technological achievements were impressive, but their ability to unite and work toward common goals was extraordinary. Perhaps they weren't as primitive as he had initially believed. Over the next few days, Cale continued observing from a distance, focusing on individuals like Emily and Daniel, who seemed to embody humanity's resilience. One afternoon, he followed Emily to a community center where she volunteered teaching children art. She knelt beside a shy boy struggling to draw a tree, offering gentle encouragement until he smiled proudly at his finished work. Later, she helped organize a food drive for local families in need, coordinating efforts with other volunteers. Her actions may have been small, but they carried weight, a ripple effect of kindness spreading through the community. Meanwhile, Daniel proved equally remarkable. When a storm knocked out power in his neighborhood, he spent hours clearing debris and checking on elderly neighbors. He didn't hesitate to lend a hand, even when others chose to stay indoors. Cale watched as Daniel used his truck to transport supplies to stranded residents, earning their gratitude with quiet humility. These acts of selflessness reinforced Cale's growing admiration for humanity. One evening, Cale returned to the hilltop overlooking the town. The sky was clear, dotted with stars that reminded him of home. Yet instead of feeling comforted, he felt restless. His mission was to evaluate humanity's worthiness, but the more he learned, the harder it became to judge them objectively. They were flawed, yes, but weren't all species. And wasn't it their flaws that made them unique? As he sat there lost in thought, a sudden commotion drew his attention. Below, in the town square, a fire had broken out in an abandoned building. Flames licked hungrily at the structure, sending thick plumes of smoke billowing into the air. Within moments, emergency vehicles arrived, sirens blaring. Firefighters rushed to contain the blaze while police officers directed traffic and kept spectators at a safe distance. Kyle activated his visor, enhancing his vision to zoom in on the scene. Among the firefighters was Daniel, wielding a hose, with practiced skill. Despite the danger, he moved with calm determination, working seamlessly with his team to extinguish the flames. Nearby, Emily stood with a group of volunteers handing out water bottles and blankets to displaced residents. Even in the midst of chaos, they remained focused, doing whatever they could to help. Watching them work together, Cale felt a pang of something unfamiliar, an emotion he struggled to identify. Was it admiration? Respect? Whatever it was, it stirred something deep within him. These humans weren't perfect, but they refused to give up, even when faced with overwhelming odds. Their strength wasn't just physical, it was emotional, mental, and spiritual. They adapted, endured, and overcame. By the time the fire was under control, the sun had begun to rise, casting a golden glow over the smoldering ruins. Exhausted but determined, the firefighters packed up their equipment while volunteers tended to those affected by the disaster. Kyle lingered a moment longer, taking in the scene. Then, with a soft hum, he activated his cloaking device and disappeared into the shadows. Back at his makeshift camp, Cale reviewed the footage he had recorded. Every act of bravery, every gesture of kindness, every moment of teamwork painted a picture of humanity that defied his expectations. They were resourceful, resilient, and compassionate. All qualities he had underestimated. Slowly but surely, his perspective was shifting. That night, as he lay beneath the stars, Cale allowed himself to reflect on his own journey. He had come to Earth expecting to find a primitive species unworthy of galactic recognition. Instead, he had discovered a complex tapestry of strengths and weaknesses, triumphs and failures. Humanity wasn't perfect, but perhaps perfection wasn't the point. Maybe it was their imperfections, their struggles, their growth, that made them worthy of consideration. For the first time since arriving, Kyle began to doubt his original mission. Were humans truly too dangerous or too unevolved to join the interstellar community? Or was it possible that they had earned their place among the stars? The answers eluded him, but one thing was certain. He couldn't make his decision lightly. Humanity deserved more than a hasty judgment based on preconceived notions. They deserved a chance to prove themselves, to show the galaxy what they were truly capable of. And so, as dawn broke over the horizon, Kyle resolved to continue observing, He would dig deeper, learn more, and challenge his assumptions. Only then could he determine whether humanity was ready to take its place among the stars, or if they needed more time to grow. Cale's routine of observation continued, but something felt different now. His earlier skepticism had softened into curiosity, and he found himself drawn to humanity's complexities more than ever before. Each day brought new insights, yet also new questions. Were humans truly as chaotic as they seemed, or was there a deeper order beneath the surface? Kyle wasn't sure, but he was determined to find out. One evening, as he monitored global communications from his hidden outpost, in the forest, Cale intercepted an unusual transmission. It wasn't human. It came from deep space, encoded in a language he recognized all too well. The message was brief, but chilling. Target identified. Invasion imminent. Cale froze, his glowing blue eyes narrowing as he analyzed the data. The signal belonged to the Vorn, a ruthless alien faction known for their conquests across the galaxy. They viewed weaker species as expendable resources, wiping them out without hesitation. If the Vorn had set their sights on Earth, humanity would face annihilation unless they could somehow defend themselves. For a moment, Cale considered ignoring the transmission. After all, it wasn't his responsibility to intervene. He was here, only to observe and report back to the Galactic Council. But as he replayed the message in his mind, images of Emily and Daniel flashed before him, their kindness, their resilience, their determination. Could he stand by and watch as billions of lives were erased? Torn between duty and conscience, Cale decided to act. Disguising himself once again, he made his way into town to find Emily. She was sitting on a bench near the park, sketching in a notebook while sipping a cup of coffee. Her brow furrowed slightly as she concentrated, her pencil moving steadily across the page. Cale approached cautiously, unsure how to begin such a conversation. "Emily," he said softly, startling her. She looked up, surprised but not alarmed. "Kyle, I haven't seen you in a few days. Where have you been hiding?" "There is no time for pleasantries," Kyle replied, his tone unusually urgent. "I need to speak with you and Daniel." Emily frowned, setting her notebook aside. "What's going on? You look worried." "I am," Cale admitted. "Your world is in danger. A hostile alien race called the Vorn has targeted Earth for invasion. They will arrive soon, and if you are unprepared, they will destroy you." Emily stared at him, her mouth opening and closing as though searching for words. Finally, she shook her head. "Wait, what? Aliens? Invasion? This isn't some kind of joke, is it?" Kyle sighed. Humans often struggled to accept truths that defied their understanding. "I assure you this is real. My species sent me here to observe your readiness for galactic contact. But now I must warn you. The Vorn are far more advanced than you. Their weapons, their ships, they are beyond anything you can imagine." Emily's expression shifted from disbelief to concern. "Okay, let's say I believe you, which I'm not saying I do. What are we supposed to do about it? We're just people. Regular people." "You underestimate yourselves," Cale countered. "In my time here, I have seen your strength, your ingenuity, your ability to unite when it matters most. That is why I am telling you this. You may still have a chance, if you prepare." Emily hesitated, then nodded slowly. "All right. Let's say this is real. Who else should we tell? The government, the military?" "Yes," Cale said. "But first you must convince someone who will listen. Someone like Captain Ryan Hawkins." "Ryan?" Emily echoed. "You mean the guy running the National Guard unit? Why him?" "He understands leadership and sacrifice," Cale explained. "He will know how to rally others." Emily stood abruptly, her coffee forgotten. "Okay, fine, I'll talk to Ryan, but you're coming with me. If anyone's going to believe this insane story, they'll need proof." Kyle hesitated, but ultimately agreed. Together, they headed toward the training grounds where Ryan and his troops were conducting drills. Along the way, Emily called Daniel, explaining the situation as best she could. Though skeptical, Daniel promised to meet them there. When they arrived, Ryan was overseeing a simulated combat exercise. Soldiers moved in formation, firing blanks at targets while shouting commands. Emily approached him directly, waving to catch his attention. "Captain Hawkins," she called out. "We need to talk, it's important." Ryan turned, his sharp gaze assessing the group quickly. When he saw Kyle, his expression hardened. "Who's this?" "This is Kyle," Emily began. "He's not from around here, and he has information you need to hear." Ryan raised an eyebrow but gestured for them to follow him to a quieter area. Once they were alone, Emily launched into an explanation, recounting everything Kyle had told her. Ryan listened intently, his jaw tightening as the gravity of the situation sank in. "And you expect me to believe this?" Ryan asked finally, looking at Kale. "Aliens invading Earth, that's quite a claim." "It is true," Kale insisted. "The Vorn are already en route. You have little time to prepare." Ryan studied Kale carefully, noting the calm certainty in his voice. Then, he glanced at Emily and Daniel, both of whom nodded earnestly. After a long pause, he exhaled sharply. "All right, say I believe you. What do we do next?" "We gather intelligence and mobilize defenses," Kale replied. "I can provide tactical advice based on my knowledge of the Vorn, but you must act quickly." Ryan nodded grimly. "Understood. I'll alert command and start coordinating with other units. In the meantime, keep this quiet. We can't afford panic." As Ryan walked away to make preparations, Emily turned to Kale. "Do you really think we can win against these guys?" "I do not know," Kale admitted, "but I believe you have a fighting chance. Your adaptability and unity are your greatest strengths." Over the next few days, chaos erupted across the globe as strange phenomena signaled the Vorn's approach. Satellites detected unidentified objects entering Earth's orbit, and cities experienced sudden blackouts caused by electromagnetic pulses. Governments scrambled to respond, but confusion reigned supreme. Conspiracies spread online, and fear gripped the population. Despite the turmoil, pockets of resistance began forming. Military leaders worked tirelessly to fortify defenses, while civilians rallied together to support the war effort. Factories repurposed production lines to create weapons and supplies, and volunteers organized shelters for displaced families. Even children contributed by fundraising and writing letters to soldiers. Kale stayed close to Emily and Daniel, offering guidance whenever possible. He helped decode intercepted transmissions from the Vorn, providing critical intel about their tactics and weaknesses. At one point, he accompanied Ryan on a reconnaissance mission to investigate a mysterious crash site. What they found, a downed Vorn drone, confirmed the severity of the threat. "These things are fast," Ryan muttered, examining the sleek insect-like machine. Its metallic body gleamed menacingly under the moonlight. "If even half their fleet is equipped with tech like this, we're in serious trouble. Weapons alone will not save you," Kale warned. "The Vorn rely on overwhelming force and psychological warfare. You must stay adaptable and unpredictable." Ryan nodded thoughtfully. "Got it. Thanks for the heads up." As the days passed, Kale couldn't help but admire humanity's response. Despite the odds stacked against them, they refused to give up. Neighbors helped neighbors, strangers became allies, and ordinary citizens rose to extraordinary challenges. Even those who had never held a weapon before volunteered to fight, driven by a shared desire to protect their homes and loved ones. One night, as Kale stood atop a hill overlooking the city, he reflected on how much he had changed since arriving on Earth. He had come expecting to judge humanity, to deem them unworthy of galactic recognition. Instead, he found himself inspired by their courage and resilience. They weren't perfect, but they were fighters, and that counted for something. Below, lights twinkled in the darkness, a testament to humanity's refusal to surrender. Kale knew the battle ahead would be brutal, and victory was far from guaranteed. But for the first time he felt hopeful, not just for humanity but for the galaxy itself. Perhaps these so-called primitives had something to teach everyone about survival, unity, and hope. And with that thought, Kale prepared for the fight of his life. The days leading up to the Vorn invasion were filled with tension and urgency. Humanity, once divided by borders, beliefs, and conflicts, now stood united under a single banner: survival. Governments around the world set aside their differences, pooling resources and intelligence to prepare for the fight of their lives. Military bases buzzed with activity as soldiers trained harder than ever before, while factories churned out weapons, vehicles, and supplies at an unprecedented pace. Civilians played their part too, volunteering in droves to support the war effort however they could. Kale watched it all unfold with a mixture of admiration and apprehension. He had seen civilizations crumble under similar threats, but never had he witnessed such rapid mobilization or unwavering determination. Humans weren't just preparing, they were innovating. Engineers developed new technologies inspired by Kale's descriptions of the Vorn, combining human creativity with alien insights. Pilots practiced flying experimental aircraft equipped with hybrid systems designed to counter the invaders' superior tech. Even ordinary citizens contributed, organizing food drives, building shelters, and caring for displaced families. Emily and Daniel became key figures in this collective effort. Emily used her teaching skills to organize community workshops, teaching people basic first aid, communication protocols, and how to use makeshift tools for defense. She also helped coordinate volunteer networks, ensuring that no one was left behind. Her calm demeanor and resourcefulness earned her the trust of those around her, making her a natural leader in times of crisis. Daniel, meanwhile, joined a local militia group tasked with defending the town. Though he had no prior military experience, his quick thinking and physical strength made him a valuable asset. He spent long hours training alongside other volunteers, learning everything from marksmanship to tactical maneuvers. When not practicing, he worked tirelessly to fortify the town's defenses, helping construct barricades and set traps for potential intruders. Captain Ryan Hawkins remained at the forefront of humanity's preparations, coordinating efforts across multiple fronts. With Kale's guidance, he devised strategies to exploit the Vorn's weaknesses, emphasizing speed, unpredictability, and teamwork. "We can't match them head-on," Ryan explained during a briefing, "but we can outsmart them, hit fast, hit hard, and keep moving." Kale attended these meetings, offering insights based on his knowledge of the Vorn. He described their tactics, how they relied on overwhelming force and psychological warfare to crush resistance before it could take root. He warned about their advanced weaponry, including energy-based rifles capable of disintegrating targets instantly, and drones programmed to swarm and overwhelm opponents. But he also highlighted their vulnerabilities, their rigid adherence to predictable patterns, and their arrogance in assuming victory was inevitable. As the final pieces fell into place, humanity braced itself for the coming storm. News outlets broadcast updates constantly, urging citizens to stay alert and prepared. Schools converted into emergency shelters, hospitals expanded their capacity, and evacuation plans were put into motion. Despite the fear gripping many hearts, there was also a sense of solidarity, a shared belief that together they could overcome even the greatest of challenges. Then it happened. The sky darkened unnaturally as massive ships descended from orbit, casting ominous shadows over cities and towns alike. The Vorn fleet loomed above Earth like a swarm of metallic predators, their sleek angular designs glinting menacingly in the sunlight. From their vessels emerged waves of drones and ground troops, descending upon humanity with terrifying efficiency. Chaos erupted almost immediately. Explosions rocked urban centers as the Vorn unleashed devastating attacks, targeting infrastructure and military installations. Power grids failed, plunging entire regions into darkness. Communication networks faltered, leaving isolated pockets of resistance struggling to regroup. Yet amid the destruction, humanity fought back with everything they had. In the skies, fighter jets engaged the Vorn's smaller craft, weaving through clouds of enemy fire with reckless abandon. Pilots like Jake Thompson, a young man barely out of training, pushed their machines to the limit, using every trick they'd learned to evade and counterattack. On the ground, Soldiers clashed with Vorn infantry in brutal close-quarters combat, relying on raw courage and teamwork to hold their positions. Ryan led one such battle near the outskirts of the city, rallying his troops with shouts of encouragement. "Stay sharp! Watch each other's backs!" he barked, firing his rifle with steady precision. Around him, men and women fought fiercely, refusing to yield an inch despite being outnumbered and outgunned. Their discipline and coordination caught the Vorn off guard, forcing them to adapt their strategy mid-fight. Meanwhile, Emily and Daniel played crucial roles in supporting the front lines. Emily coordinated supply drops via radio, directing trucks loaded with ammunition and medical kits to where they were needed most. She also tended to wounded soldiers, applying bandages and administering painkillers with trembling but determined hands. Daniel, armed with a rifle and a backpack full of grenades, patrolled the streets alongside other volunteers, ambushing Vorn patrols and sabotaging their equipment whenever possible. Kale joined the fray directly, using his advanced technology to disable enemy ships and protect civilians. His suit allowed him to move faster than any human, dodging blasts and delivering precise strikes against the Vorn's mechanical forces. At one point, he infiltrated a drone command center, hacking into its systems to disrupt communications, temporarily. It was a risky maneuver, but it bought humanity precious time to regroup and launch counterattacks. Despite their valiant efforts, the cost of resistance was high. Entire neighborhoods lay in ruins, reduced to smoldering rubble by relentless bombardments. Hospitals overflowed with casualties, doctors working tirelessly to save lives even as they mourned the loss of friends and colleagues. Families huddled, together in shelters, praying for deliverance as explosions echoed outside. Yet through it all, humanity refused to break. Soldiers who had never met before embraced like brothers in arms, sharing stories of home between battles. Civilians risked their lives to rescue strangers trapped beneath collapsed buildings, digging with bare hands when necessary. Children drew pictures of heroes fighting aliens, clinging to hope even in the darkest moments. One particularly fierce engagement took place near a hydroelectric dam, which the Vorn sought to destroy in order to cripple the region's power supply. A coalition of troops and volunteers managed to repel the attack after hours of grueling combat, sacrificing dozens of lives to ensure the structure remained intact. When word spread of their success, cheers erupted across the battlefield, a fleeting but powerful reminder of why they fought. As the days turned into weeks, Kyle grew increasingly impressed by humanity's resilience. They adapted to every challenge thrown at them, finding creative solutions to problems that would have stumped more advanced species. Their ability to improvise, to turn scraps of metal and wires into functional weapons or repair damaged vehicles with minimal tools, was nothing short of remarkable. But perhaps what struck Kale most deeply was their capacity for compassion. Even in the midst of war, they cared for one another. Medics ran into danger to retrieve fallen comrades. Strangers shared food and water, knowing that survival depended on cooperation rather than selfishness. And amidst the chaos, small acts of kindness reminded everyone of what they were fighting for: a better future, free from oppression and fear. By the end of the first major wave of attacks, humanity had proven two things beyond doubt. First, they were far stronger than the Vorn or Kale himself had anticipated. Second, they possessed something rare and invaluable: the will to endure, no matter the odds. As Kale surveyed the battlefield from a hilltop, watching fires burn in the distance and hearing the distant rumble of artillery, he felt a profound sense of respect for these beings he had once dismissed as primitive. They weren't perfect, and they certainly weren't invincible. But they were survivors, and survivors, he realized, were always worth betting on. The war was far from over, but for the first time since arriving on Earth, Kale truly believed humanity might stand a chance.